Explanation of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a**ck. Mark Manson. Introduction to the book. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a**ck is a self-development book by American writer Mark Manson, published in 2016. The book presents a different philosophy from traditional human development, as it rejects excessively optimistic ideas and emphasizes that life is full of problems and that happiness is not in avoiding them, but in choosing the problems that deserve attention. Mark Manson adopts a direct and frank style, mixing humor, wisdom, and harsh reality to provide a different vision of life. Instead of focusing on how to be successful, he focuses on how to accept failure and live with it without excessive psychological pressure. Main ideas of the book. 1. Happiness is not the absence of problems, but choosing the problems that suit you. Manson says that the idea of absolute happiness is an illusion. Humans always face problems, but the difference between happy and unhappy people is in the type of problems they choose to deal with. Instead of running away from them, we should look for problems that are worth our time and effort and learn how to deal with them. 2. Don't try to be special all the time. In the age of social media, everyone is striving for excellence, but Manson believes that trying to be the best at everything can ruin your life. It is better to be average, to accept yourself with your flaws rather than chasing unrealistic standards of happiness or success. 3. The importance of accepting failure and suffering. True success does not come from seeking comfort, but from enduring the suffering associated with something you love. For example, if you want to become a successful writer, you must accept the pain of constant writing and criticism. Details of each chapter of the book. Chapter 1. Don't Try. Manson begins his book with the story of the writer Charles Bukowski, who failed at almost everything but continued to write, even though he was not perfect or a role model. Here Manson explains that attempts at overstimulation can be harmful, and that the solution is to accept things as they are and deal with them realistically. Key ideas. Don't try too hard to be happy all the time, as this can make you more miserable. Accept your flaws and weaknesses, and don't try to be a perfect person. You shouldn't care about everything, but rather focus only on the things that really matter. Chapter 2. Happiness is a problem. The author explains how the constant search for happiness leads to unhappiness. Happiness is not in avoiding problems, but in solving problems that are worth caring about. Even when you achieve success, new problems will appear, and this is normal. These key ideas. Life is not easy, and it doesn't have to be. Happiness is not a goal, but a result of solving the problems that you care about. Problems don't end, but you can choose which ones are worth suffering for. Chapter 3. You are not a special person. Manson criticizes the idea that everyone is special and deserves the best without effort. He explains that this thinking leads to a false sense of entitlement, where people expect success without effort, which creates constant frustration. Key ideas. Success requires effort, not just believing that you are special. Accept that you are an ordinary person and live your life based on your own values, not the standards of others. Constant comparison with others leads to frustration. Chapter 4. The value of suffering. The author emphasizes that everything has a price, and the question is not how to be happy, but what kind of pain are you willing to endure? Success in any field requires suffering, so you should choose the field that you enjoy suffering. Key ideas. Happiness comes from finding something worth suffering for. Choose your suffering instead of trying to avoid it. Good values bring self-satisfaction, and bad values bring unhappiness. Chapter 5. You are in a constant state of choice. Manson explains how each person is responsible for his life, even if he is not responsible for the circumstances he is going through. The difference between successful people and unhappy people is how they respond to circumstances. Key insights. You can't control everything, but you can control how you respond. Taking responsibility for your life makes you stronger. Blaming others doesn't help, it gives them power over you. Chapter 6. You're wrong about everything, and so am I. The author talks about the importance of questioning our beliefs. Because we are constantly changing, and the ideas we believed in 10 years ago may not be true today. Key insights. Always be ready to review and change your beliefs. Continuous learning and intellectual humility make you more mature. We all make mistakes, and the important thing is to learn from them. Chapter 7. Failure is the path to progress. Manson emphasizes that failure is necessary for growth and development. Successful people don't fear failure, but rather see it as part of the learning process. Key insights. Don't be afraid of failure, but make failure part of your journey. Don't wait until you feel motivated. Just start, and motivation will come later. Every failure is a lesson to be learned. Chapter 8. The importance of saying no. The author explains that life is full of opportunities, but we must carefully choose what we say yes and no to. Key ideas. Set boundaries in your life, and don't try to please everyone. Giving up some opportunities may be necessary to focus on what is most important. Clarity and honesty make relationships healthier. Chapter 9. Reflecting on death. Manson concludes the book by talking about death and how our awareness of the inevitability of death makes us live a more conscious life. Key ideas. Death makes us focus on the things that really matter. Instead of searching for permanent happiness, search for the true meaning of your life. Conclusion. What can we learn from the book? The Art of Not Giving, AF*CC, teaches us that life is not perfect, and that the solution is not to strive for perfection, but to choose what we care about wisely and to accept pain as part of the human experience. In his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving, AF*CK, Mark Manson uses many real-life and historical stories to illustrate his ideas. These stories provide a deep insight into life and reflect the book's philosophy of acceptance, realism, and choosing what is truly worth caring about. Here are some of the most prominent stories in the book, with a detailed analysis of each story and the lesson learned from it. Indifference 1. Charles Bukowski's story, Don't Try. Story summary. Charles Bukowski was a failure by society's standards. He spent years suffering from poverty, alcoholism, and instability. His works were rejected by publishing houses for many years. He worked boring jobs such as a mailman, but he hated his life. After decades of failure, he finally got the chance to publish his first book. Despite his success, he didn't try to be someone else. He stayed true to himself, writing in his own raw and unusual style. When he died, his gravestone was inscribed with the phrase, "Don't try." Lesson learned. Don't try to be perfect or please everyone. Accept your flaws and focus on what you love to do, even if it's not successful in society's sense. Happiness isn't about pursuing success. It's about living your life to the fullest. Bruce Lee's story, Lowering Expectations to Find Happiness. Story summary. When Bruce Lee was young, he wrote in his diary, "I want to be the greatest fighter in the world and have money and fame." But over time, he realized that these goals were unrealistic. Later, he wrote, "I'll be happy just getting better every day." Lesson learned. Expectations that are too high can make you unhappy because they put you under constant pressure. Success isn't about reaching a certain peak. It's about constantly improving. If you focus on improving day by day, you'll feel satisfied without needing external measures of happiness. 3. The story of Japanese Hiroo Onoda. Holding on to the past can destroy you. Story summary. Hiroo Onoda was a Japanese soldier during World War II. When the war ended in 1945, he refused to believe it and continued to fight in the jungle for 30 years. He lived on limited resources and continued to believe that Japan was still at war. Eventually, the Japanese army sent his former commander to convince him to surrender, and only then did he realize the truth. Lesson learned. Holding on to the past can destroy your life, even if you think you are doing the right thing. We have to be able to accept the new reality and adapt to it. Change is not weakness, but part of growth and maturity. 4. The story of the Indian prince who left everything. Happiness is not in wealth. Story summary. There was an Indian prince who lived in a luxurious palace, but he felt dissatisfied despite having everything. He decided to leave his wealth and live as a vagabond in search of true happiness. After years of contemplation and experimentation, he came to the conclusion that happiness does not come from possessions or material success, but from inner peace and self-satisfaction. Lesson learned: money and social status do not bring true happiness. Happiness comes from within and is not related to external things. Sometimes giving up some things may be the path to finding a deeper meaning in life. 5. The story of the man who climbed Mount Everest and felt depressed afterward. Story summary. There was a man who dreamed all his life of climbing Mount Everest. After years of training, he achieved his dream and reached the summit. But instead of feeling happy, he became deeply depressed because he did not know what to do next. After achieving his biggest dream, he realized that he was chasing an illusion, and that happiness is not in reaching the summit, but in the journey itself. Lesson learned: don't tie your happiness to one goal, because achieving it may not make you as happy as you expect. Life is not about reaching the summit, but about finding continuous meaning. Enjoy the journey instead of focusing only on the end result. 6. Picasso story. Value is not in time, but in experience. Story summary. Pablo Picasso was sitting in a cafe, and a woman came up to him and asked him to draw something for her. In 30 seconds, he drew a small picture and gave it to her, then said, "This will cost you $10,000. The woman was surprised and said, "But it only took you 30 seconds. Picasso replied, "No, it took me 30 years to be able to draw this in 30 seconds. Lesson learned: success is not measured only by the time it takes to accomplish something, but by the experience you accumulate over the years. Don't underestimate the value of your work or skills just because they seem easy to you. Constant effort and training are what make excellence. 7. The story of Mark Manson's friend who had everything but was depressed. Story summary. Mark Manson's friend had everything anyone could dream of: a great job with a high salary, a luxurious house and luxury cars, good social relationships. However, he was unhappy. He eventually realized that the reason was that he was chasing success based on society's standards, not based on what truly made him happy. Lesson learned: don't let your happiness depend on money or material success alone. Find out what really makes you happy, not what others think should make you happy. True values like love, good relationships, and a sense of meaning are the most important in life. Conclusion. How can you benefit from these stories? Mark Manson uses these stories to teach us how to accept life realistically and how to choose the things that are truly worth our attention.